Would you please put your hands together for the lovely and talented Christopher Voss?
Thanks. And the most important place that I appear is my mom's coffee table. She's got my book on her coffee table. She makes you come in the front door. You can't pass anything in her house without seeing that book. All right, so a couple things today. I changed up today for you guys. First part of this, some stuff I don't talk about, a lot of other people. You're gonna get the tip of the iceberg. I'm gonna give you a couple tips here today that there are a number of people that's all they learn. And then I get all these messages on LinkedIn like, I am killing it. I'm absolutely killing it. I should come and work on your staff. It is in fact, look at that, huh? You just walked by, that was cool. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This one in particular that I'm getting ready to give you on the first part here. Now, this is a book. What we didn't know when we wrote the book, this entire negotiation system is designed to go up against terrorists, kidnappers, terrorists, get the upper hand without inflaming the other side. This guy right here is one of them. Who is this guy in your world? Do you know? The exact profile of the procurement negotiator. How many of you like dealing with procurement? Most business executives, most salespeople, when they find out procurement is on the other side, they melt down. We get a very successful CEO who also wrote a book alongside. Our co-author is this guy named Tal Raz. Read anything that Tal Raz has written. Tal Raz, absolute friggin' business negotiation genius. If you come across a business book in a section that you're looking at and Tal Raz's name is on it, buy that book. He also is co-author of another book out there called, you may have heard of Never Eat Alone, with Keith Frazzi. Tal wrote that, so Tal's an absolute genius writer. When we started working on this book, we didn't know that the entire system is designed for the procurement negotiator. CEO is working on a book with reaches out to us. She says, I got this great deal consulting with this company, and now procurement is involved, and I don't know what to do. And I was kind of shocked. I'm like, you guys are really that scared of procurement, huh? And so this entire system is designed to deal with the procurement negotiator, the contracts negotiator, and with everybody else too, how to make great deals with people. So here's the one thing that everybody learns, and it's the opening story in the book. It's a phrase, and it's this simple, and it's got to be said this way. How am I supposed to do that? Now, just for fun, everybody say, how am I supposed to do that? See, that didn't hurt, right? Say it again. How am I supposed to do that? Now, do you know what you're saying? You know what that is the first phase of? It's the first phase of no. Now, tone of voice, we'll get into tonality, it's very important. Tonality is critical. Tonality is a hostage negotiator's secret weapon. It's any negotiator's secret weapon. It's Jordan Belfort's secret weapon. Any of you familiar with The Wolf of Wall Street, The Way of the Wolf? How did this guy be so successful that he owed over $100 million in restitution? If he owed over $100 million, he made a lot more than that. That's all they could pin him down on. Now, I don't condone the guy's morality or his business ethics, but what everybody's fascinated about the guy is, he understood something. And went back through his book and finally studied him really hard, and it was tonality. Tonality is a hostage negotiator's secret weapon, business negotiator's secret weapon, business person's secret weapon on a variety of levels. You guys know your negotiations are more emotionally volatile than a hostage negotiator's? Sometimes people have asked me, what's the difference between hostage negotiations and business negotiations? My first answer these days now, since we've been coaching business negotiations, since the book came out, that's all we do is business, is that hostage negotiations are calmer. Think about how stupid that is. You guys have more stories of people yelling at you and calling you names and storming out of rooms than any of my hostage negotiators ever did. How is that possible? What am I doing to you right now? How many of you know what I'm doing right now? Somebody tell me. The late night FM DJ voice. If you could see me or if you can hear me, I can reach into your brain and I can flip a switch. It's called mirror neurons. And I can change the speed that your brain is moving before I finish the sentence. And it's a neurological, chemical reaction. What we teach, basically, our method is neuroscience meets emotional intelligence. I hit your mirror neurons, it causes a chemical reaction, it actually slows your brain down, it calms you down. Does both simultaneously at the same time. You can start to get behind that, and it gives you some interesting superpowers. Now, hostage negotiator talks in a late night FM DJ voice about 90% of the time. You guys should use it about 10% of the time. The voice you should use the other 10% of the time is a smiling voice, the friendly voice, the accommodator's voice. Why should you use that about 90% of the time? First of all, again, mirror neuron neuroscience fact. Science, hard science fact. You're up to 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. Give yourself an immediate 31% boost in mental capability by being in a positive frame of mind. That's why on a regular and consistent basis, across the board in society, there are a lot of lessons about learning about gratitude, being in a good mood. Sean Acker has a great TED Talk called The Happiness Advantage. He's a Harvard psychologist. The TED Talk is worth watching, where he lays that statistic out. That's the source of my data on that, 31%. I'm satisfied with my source. Here's a couple crazy facts for you. They did an experiment. They want to know if there's a hardwired connection between the muscles in the face and the mirror neurons in the brain. They told people, take a pencil, hold it in your mouth, don't let your lips touch it. What are you doing? You're smiling, only you don't know you're smiling, right? And they found out that there's a corresponding uptick in the brain's mental capabilities. If you study flow at all, and you should, in your library, besides Never Split the Difference, should be the book The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. Performance-based book. The mindset of flow increases your mental agility, broadens your perspective, gives you the ability to take in more data, and increases your pattern recognition. All those things that you need to perform in business. The mindset of flow is a highly positive state of mind. So cultivating a positive state of mind in yourself makes you smarter. If I smile at you, despite the fact that you've got your arms folded and you're sitting there trying to, it hits your mirror neurons. I start the chemical process in your brain. Now you can stop it, you can fight it, but you can't stop me from getting it started. Now this is a great tactical advantage. I'm a big fan of the U2, the rock group U2, and also Bono as a human being, and also in their music. But I don't know how many of you know Bono negotiated, along with Bob Geldof, the forgiveness of literally hundreds of millions of dollars of third world debt as part of the Millennium Project. Hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. That's not a bad negotiation. What Bono, and in order to get that negotiated, he had to interact with and make deals with some of the most despicable people on the planet. He had to make a deal with Vladimir Putin because they were holding a lot of third world debt. That's why you see pictures of Bono smiling and laughing with Putin, of which he's highly criticized for. Why is he laughing with a KGB agent who's probably responsible for the death of hundreds, if not thousands? Bono found out that in any interaction, anybody he met, despite what kind of person they were on the other side, if he could laugh with them early on, he could probably make a deal. So give some thought to that as to how you're interacting with people, how you're giving yourself tactical advantages, how you're making yourself smarter in the moment, how you're increasing the likelihood that you're going to get the deal. All right, let me see, where do I want to go from here? So, we finish up a kidnapping in the Philippines, 2 consecutive kidnappings in the Philippines I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about. One of them went really well, one of them they changed up all the players on all sides of the table, the second one didn't go that well. By the time I got ready to get up to Harvard, because I thought, we got to get better. Did an after-action review of the case. It's the Burnham-Sabero kidnapping. It's in the book. It's a massive, ugly train wreck. 2 or 3 hostages at the end were killed by friendly fire in a botched rescue mission. So I think, all right, we did everything we know how to do. We got to get better. Either get better or get out. If you fail, you win or you learn, right? So how do we learn? I decided to go to Harvard. I'm going to go up to Harvard, and I'm going to see if we can collaborate on stuff. My old job, FBI hostage negotiator, it wasn't a bad business card to hand out. Most people, if I could walk up to them and just hand them my business card, wait for them to read it, then they want to talk to me. That's the reason why I went up to Harvard. You could go to their executive training up there, pay about, back then it was $3,000 for 3 days of training. All you had to do is pay the tab and you're up there. I go up there not necessarily to learn from them, but I want to hand my business card to the head of the program on negotiation. Bob Mnookin, author of Beyond Winning. 2nd chapter in his book, The Tension Between Empathy and Assertiveness, is one of the best chapters on empathy ever written. We highly recommend that chapter. Bob comes walking by, I hand him my card, and just wait for him to react. He initially reacts like he does when everybody else hands him a card. He's kind of polite, oh, very, nice to meet you. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. Let's talk. So we go back to his office. Now, by this time, I've already got the phrase that I just gave you guys. I've got it down. And I know how powerful it is. So we walk into his office, and he says, Chris, let's pretend I'm a kidnapper. I got your son, and I want $1 million. And I'm going to kill your son if I don't get $1 million out of you. And you say the U.S. government doesn't pay ransom. What are you going to do? And I go, Bob, I'm just going to ask you a couple open-ended questions. And he goes, really? I mean, yeah, that's it. He said, wait 1 minute. Calls in his secretary with a tape recorder. Calls in a woman who's there as a visiting scholar from the Israeli Defense Forces, Gabriela Bloom. She's a JAG attorney with the IDF. And says, okay, got your son, Voss. $1 million. Pay right now, we kill him. What do you think I say? Exactly. Say it again for me. How am I supposed to do that? I said, Bob, how am I supposed to do that? And he goes, wait a minute, you don't understand. You got your son, we're gonna kill your son, you gotta give us $1 million. I say it again for me. And he blinks a couple of more times. He says, yeah, but we'll kill him. And I say, now you get, how am I supposed to do that down? You start to go for variations, because what's the issue here? How do you make what they want, what you want, the path to their goal? You take the sequence. I say, Bob, how do I know he's alive? He blinks at me a couple more times. Now I'm going to kill him. I said, Bob, how am I supposed to pay you if I don't know he's alive? This is a sequencing of what you want with what they want. You make what you want the path to what they want. The secret to gaining the upper hand in a negotiation is giving the other side the illusion of control. You're going to principally focus on that with how and what questions. How is a ridiculously powerful question. Now, how do I get to this point where I know that I can get away with this? Because we go back to this guy in the Philippines. Succession of cases in the Philippines, second one. We're in the middle of this kidnapping. Now, back then, we're not asking, how am I supposed to do that? As a means of proof of life or a means of doing anything else. What did we do? Here's what we did. You guys have seen the movie Man on Fire with Denzel Washington? Remember the pivotal scene in that movie when he hears that the little girl's alive. What does he do? He said, I need proof of life. I need to know that she's alive. By the way, as a side note, Denzel Washington's played me 3 times in movies. He doesn't call, he doesn't write. I haven't got any thanks from him. I got no autographed pictures, I got nothing. But what does he say at that moment? He says, what's the name of her bear? She's got a bear. What's that the equivalent of? That's proof of life. That's your bank security question, right? It's the same question that every one of you guys use. Bank security, internet security. Every one of you has got at least 2 or 3 backup questions, which sound like open-ended questions because they typically start with what, but there's only one. There's a one-word answer, and only you know it. And it used to be the way we established proof of life. And in fact, just like for you, somebody calls your bank from your phone, and they don't recognize your voice, but they want to know that it's you. They're going to ask you proof of life, are they not? They need to know that they're speaking to you. They didn't think that idea up. They got that from us. But it goes quick and easy, and it gives you no power in the dynamic. It gives a person asking the question no real upper hand, and it's quick and easy. That's exactly why we used to do it all the time, and exactly like what happened in the movie Denzel Washington. Guy says, the voice, because what kind of voice did the voice have? The late night FM DJ, didn't he? Because he had a job as a negotiator. That was his job. By the way, terrorists on the other side of the line, the kidnapping is a horrific event to us. To them, it's another day at work. Which was the interesting thing about that movie, because they did a really nice job of portraying the people on the other side as just having a job. They were commodities. They are commodities dealers. Commodity happens to be human beings. To us, that's horrific. To them, it's a job. Literally had them tell us that on the phone, that they trade in a commodity, and a commodity happens to be human beings. Understanding what it is to the other side is always a critical issue in a negotiation. But gives you no upper hand. So in the kidnapping in the Philippines, we're talking, and we never used to ask for the bad guys to put the person on the phone. Why? This is a mistake we used to make all the time, and you make this now. Why? There is an emotion involved. Yeah, emotion is the answer to everything, right? When you don't ask for something in a negotiation, why don't you ask for it? I'm sorry? That's one thing, that's one issue. We're being careful of reciprocity dynamic, which I will get to in a minute, how to stay out of that. But why else? What stops you typically from asking for something in a negotiation? It's going to give them some leverage. You're going to worry about how it's going to give them leverage. Another good point. Here's the most frequent reason why you don't do it. You tell yourself it's a non-starter, they won't do it. We won't ask because they're going to say no, and you guys are horrified of the word no. Scared to death of it. Takes you hostage on a regular basis. But I hear people time after time after time in negotiations, they get ready and they say, well, let's ask for this. And somebody on the team say, nah, it's a non-starter. Don't even bring it up. It's not that it's a non-starter. You don't know how to bring it up. If it's a non-starter, there's a whole bunch of reasons why you should, in fact, bring it up. There's all sorts of dynamics behind it. But I didn't know this back then. We're in the middle of a kidnapping. We're working on kidnapping in the Philippines. We're not asking for proof of life because I don't want to owe. And I don't think they're going to do it. And I knew they were alive. What do I want to ask for proof of life for if I know the people on the other side are alive? I don't want to trigger reciprocity. I don't want to owe. I don't want to show them what's important to me. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So we're in the middle of this case, and I find out there's an overhear from another secret government agency that I can't mention, but I can say they're a secret government agency. And they say, just want you to know your hostages were picked up on a telephone call. And forgive me, I'll use the occasional profanity now to capture the moment. I remember thinking, what the fuck? Like, what are they calling home? Are they getting reservations? Are they ordering pizza? What the hell's a hostage doing on a phone? I checked with my boss at the time. I'm still relatively new to a lot of this stuff. I don't know what a lot of this means. Gary Nessner. And he says, yeah, hostages only are on the phone for proof of life. I'm sure that my head looked like it exploded when he told me that. Because, first of all, who's getting a hostage on the phone? We don't do that. How is somebody else out there doing it? There ain't other FBI hostage negotiators involved in this case. Somebody's getting them on the phone, and who the fuck is getting my hostages on the phone to get proof of life? I mean, it boggles the mind. We didn't get an answer in the moment, although later on down the line we find out one of the biggest criminals in the Philippines, who also happens to be a politician. These are simultaneous roles in many third world countries. He's trying to buy the hostages out to embarrass the president for political advantage. We find out about it on down the line. We squash that for political reasons, and people end up dying. But I'm stuck with, how did they do it? So a couple months later, I'm listening to the tapes. Two things have happened. I'm listening to the tapes from a kidnapping in Pittsburgh, and I've come across also Jim Camp's book, Start With No. Did a lot of work with Jim Camp, both when I was with the FBI, after I left. We used to collaborate with him and his son. Believe in his book, Start With No, is a good book on negotiation. I remember the first time I saw it, I'm walking through an airport bookstore and I see Start With No in the business section. I think to myself, that's wrong. Let me see what's in this book. I read the book, got some ideas, sent him an email, we started to collaborate. Good guy. Jim has since passed on. His son is still running the company. I thought Jim had some revolutionary ideas. But he's very big into questions. He calls them interrogatives, principally what and how questions, principally what questions. So I got this what question thing sticking in my head about how powerful these are in business negotiation. I'm trying to learn from business negotiation. We get kidnapping going in Pittsburgh. My partner, Chuck, says, you gotta listen to these tapes, man. These are hysterical. Because a kidnapping in Pittsburgh, one drug dealer has kidnapped another drug dealer's girlfriend. And a drug dealer victim, who do you go to when somebody in your family's been kidnapped, no matter what you do for a living? Go to the FBI. Drug dealers going to the FBI for help, which I love that as an idea at all. So FBI agents, hostage negotiators, riding around Pittsburgh with his drug dealer, while his drug dealer's talking to another drug dealer about his girlfriend. And the moment kind of gets ahead of everybody, so the drug dealer says, one drug dealer says to another drug dealer, I'll never forget this phrase, hey dog, how do I know she's all right? The how question, right? And there's this long silence on the other end of the line, and a drug dealer on the other side says, I'll put her on the phone. And in that moment, everything changed. Who had the upper hand in the negotiation? The kidnapper didn't realize that he'd lost the upper hand in that moment. The procurement negotiator on the other side had no idea they just lost the upper hand in that moment. Simple how question. And I remember how hard it hit me at the time, because what's the perfect question that's rational and reasonable to ask regardless of the circumstances? How do you know you're going to get your end? How do you know they're going to follow through on a contract? How do we know if we're off track? How are we going to address being off track? It's one of the reasons why my company, we used to teach yes is nothing without how. Now actually we teach yes is nothing, period. And how is everything. No matter what negotiation you're in, you have a legitimate ask of how's this going to happen. Somebody on the other side wants you to do all this work up front before you get the contract. How do we know you're going to invest in us if we invest in you? These are all legitimate questions. If I can get away with asking how to a terrorist and have it never inflame the situation, never, you can ask, how am I supposed to do that in every one of your negotiations? And that's the one thing that on a regular basis, since it's in, that story with Bob Mnookin at Harvard is in the first 10 pages of the book. Most people, I say, look, buy the book, read the first 10 pages. If you don't like the first 10 pages, throw it away. Because I know you're going to be hooked after those 10 pages. People are coming back to us time after time after time. Somebody walks up to me and says, I was negotiating with a contractor over some work on my house the other day, and he gave me a price. And I just looked at him, I said, how am I supposed to do that? And the contractor cut the price in half on the spot. I get an email from a mom, her 13-year-old son wants her to buy a video game that's $129. She looks at him and says, how am I supposed to do that? He says, okay, I'll pay half. She kept asking him, how am I supposed to do that? He got so frustrated, he said, Mom, are we really that poor? I mean, how am I supposed to do that creates this dynamic called forced empathy. It forces the other side to stop and think and take a look at you. Danny Kahneman would refer to this as triggering slow thinking. Danny Kahneman's book won the Nobel Prize in Behavioral Economics for prospect theory. Kahneman's a psychologist, and he won an economics Nobel Prize. That's how powerful prospect theory is. His book, Thinking Fast and Slow, is about triggering slow or in-depth thinking. How am I supposed to do that? Triggers slow, in-depth thinking on the other side. It stops somebody who's charging at you hard in their tracks. It forces them to stop and think and at least take a look at you. And if that's all that they do, you just begin to change the dynamic. Now, sometimes we get people say to us, well, what happens, because this is what you're going to imagine. You're going to imagine a person on the other side is going to say to you, because you have to. You say, how am I supposed to do that? And they're going to say, because you have to. That happens about 1 in 10 to 15 times. First of all, think about what that batting average is. Think about the percentage of time that it works effectively to switch things around. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask that question until they look at you and say, because you have to, because in that moment, you've done your job on behalf of your best interests. You push the other side as far as you possibly can, and they're still talking to you. They haven't screamed at you, called your name, slammed their hands down on the table, stood up and walked out of the room. All those stories that all of you have yourselves or are familiar with, and when the other side goes berserk on you and storms out of the room because they've been pushed too far. This is how you know how to push someone as far as you can without making them hate you, still preserving the relationship simultaneously. Because hostage negotiators believe in preserving the relationship. We have repeat customers. We don't do one-off negotiations. There was a siege in Baltimore back in about 2000. Guy been on the run for 10 days, had committed 4 homicides in the course of about 36 hours. He finally gets cornered. He's got 2 hostages. It's the largest manhunt in the history of Baltimore. Negotiators get him on the phone. First negotiator's a little excited. The city's been on edge for 10 days. First negotiator's a little excited, and the guy on the other end of the phone, the bad guy, the killer, says, you're not doing a good job. You're supposed to be establishing rapport with me. He'd been barricaded before. The negotiator that handled them before understands that we have repeat customers. Our reputation precedes us. We can't lie. We have to establish a relationship that's going to last regardless of the outcome. And so how am I supposed to do that is a way to engage with the other side in a way that preserves the relationship so that no matter how, it's a critical component, no matter how it turns out, you still have a working relationship with the other side. You guys know that you have to have long-term relationships, even with people you don't like, in order to stay in business, because your reputation precedes you. All right. You think negotiation is not about what you say, it's about what you get the other side to say, right? And you guys all think that you should get the other side to say, yes, because you love to hear it. And even today, the book that consistently sells either competitively, we're one, two, and three in the rankings on a regular basis. One of the other books that continues to sell is Getting to Exactly. And you guys think that victory is when the other side says yes. How many kinds of yeses are there? Commitment, confirmation, and counterfeit. How many of you like the word maybe? If you hate maybe, you've been trying to get people to say yes. How many of you have ever been told yes and later found out it wasn't a yes? Regularly. Problem is you're going for the wrong word. Part of that also is another problem why people that we coach accelerate deals on a regular basis. Besides training and putting out a lot of free material, we do a lot of business coachings. And on a regular basis, our best coach is a guy named Derek. Derek, somebody come to Derek's been working on a deal for 18 months, 6 to 18 months. How long do you think Derek has got him to, from that point to having made a deal? Typically 7 days. We start eliminating problems. The other thing that we eliminate, do you know how many, let's use the term fake, because everybody's talking about fake news today. You guys know how many of your opportunities are fake opportunities? How many opportunities that you're chasing right now are not there at all? Because it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal. And as an entrepreneur, if you're responsible for your own destiny, if you eat what you kill, then you need to know what the fake opportunities are. Do you know what the percentage is? At least 20% of the opportunities that you're dealing with right now are fake opportunities. What are they? The people doing due diligence. You're the fool in the game. There's somebody else that they've already decided. You're the competing bids. There's somebody else they've already decided on, and they just need the competing bids to satisfy their boss, and they're pumping you for competing bid information, and that's it. Or they're looking for free consulting. How many of you think you're drug dealers? What's a drug dealer's approach? Give them a little taste, they're going to want more. We used to do that. I don't do that because I'm automatically smart. We did it enough times where we were giving people taste, we were giving them a little bit of value, and they had to think, look, there's got to be more there, and they're going to want to hire us. Never worked out. You're giving people taste when in fact they're looking for free consulting. The 20% figure is from the book called The Challenger's Sale. We started finding out about this as a problem in our consulting, and we were coaching people how to get out of it like that. And somebody says, yeah, it's in the Challenger's Sale. The stat on the 20%, and here's why this is low. Because they ask people how often are they lying to other business people about whether or not they're going to get the business. How many of the people out there are lying to you right now? And they got them to admit to 20%. Now, if you give that some thought, are they exaggerating how much they lie? Most likely they're not. So that 20%'s got to be a low number. The other problem is also How many people think they're going to give you a chance when they aren't? How many of the people that you interact with, that you're making your value proposition to, how many do you assume have an open mind? How many? Most likely, unless you're a sociopath, and just based on the numbers, a few of you here are, most likely, you're giving the other side the benefit of the doubt and saying that they have an open mind. The business-to-business buyers survey said that 50% of the people have made up their mind before they contact a representative from that company. Are your close rates 50%? What's wrong with the math? The other buyers surveys say that when they do contact you, they're 80% of the way through their decision process. Whichever one of those two things there is, neither one of them is an open mind. So understanding and diagnosing that from the very beginning is critical to your survival as a business, because what's your most valuable commodity? What's the line from Wall Street 2? Michael Douglas said it. What is it? Time. At the end of the day, your most valuable commodity is time. And getting out of the fake opportunities as quickly as possible is critical. So you're not trying to get them to say that's right because the yes trap, the momentum selling. Get them to say yes to the little things, and they have to say yes to the big thing. Do you want to make more money? Do you want to have more free time? Do you want to travel the world? Buy my book. Now, you guys are addicted to hearing yes, and every time somebody tries to get yes out of you, you immediately at least get a bad feeling in the pit of your stomach. Somebody calls you on the phone, you pick up the phone, and voice on the other end of the phone says, have you got a few minutes to talk? How many of you go, yes? My God, thank you for giving me the opportunity to say yes. What do you got? I don't care how long it takes. But yes is this crazy world, depending upon what side of it we're on. We either act like that when we hear it, which is why the counterfeit yes works on us so much. And the flip side, when somebody's trying to get us to say yes, we back up. Now, negotiation is not about what you say, it's what you're getting the other side to say. What you really need to get the other side to say after you stop trying to get them to say yes is this. That's right. And this is the chapter that trigger the two words that immediately transform any negotiation. The title of the chapter used to be, yes is the last thing you want to hear. What do you want to hear instead? You want to hear, that's right. You know, whichever side of the political spectrum you're on, when you watch the last presidential debates, whichever candidate said something that you completely believed in, that you were completely on board with them, you know what you did? You looked at the TV and you said, that's right. When somebody says that's right, it indicates they are all in with the person that first said it. Now, the 2 millimeter shift between that's right and your right is what people say to you when you've been making your case, when you've been laying out your argument, when you've been making your value proposition, and you know what they're trying to get you to do when they say you're right? They're trying to get you to shut the fuck up. And this is even code in my company for you're right is shut the fuck up. Like when we screw around with each other, like we're trying to make, I want to do this, like I'm haranguing up my team the other day about us doing a podcast. We got to do a podcast. People listen to podcasts, and it's a different learning operation. And my son goes, you're right, Dad. And I'm like, wait. Did you just say F you to me? But that's what we do. You guys did this week. You guys will do this next week. You guys will probably do this today. Somebody in your world, colleague, subordinate, employee, family member, friend, child, spouse, hammering you on something they want that makes sense to them, and you want to preserve the relationship, and you just want them to shut up. And you'll look at them and you go, "You're right." And they'll go, "Woo!" and they'll leave. And you'll go back to what you were doing, and the next day, 24 hours go by, they're going to come back up to you, and they're going to start in on you again, and they'll be hammering you, and you look at them and you go, "You're right." And they'll leave again. Tim Larkin is a CEO that teaches people how to defend themselves. I'm sitting next to him at a dinner about 2 years ago. I didn't know him at the time. They sit me next to him. He says, "You save me so much money, man. You save me so much money." I got my executives from my company together, and I'm outlining a strategy to them, and I'm trying to get everybody on board with the strategy. And one of my senior executives says, "Tim, you're right." And I remember stopping at a moment thinking like, holy cow. How am I so far off track with my executive team that they are asking me to shut the fuck up? He said, "I had no idea how off track I was with them. If I hadn't read your book and understood the difference between you're right and that's right." I stopped the meeting in the moment. I went back, I thought about everything that got us to that point. I went and spoke to each person individually, found out what their concerns are, found out about how I was off track, and I got everybody on the same sheet of music. And if I didn't know the difference between that's right and you're right, I would have finished that meeting thinking it was a successful meeting and we'd still be struggling with the same problem. Because that's right, what people say to you when they are all in with you. Now, the critical issue to that's right is typically saying the stuff that you're not making your case, you're making their case, and you have to have the courage, the accountability to be able to articulate the stuff that sounds like it's against you. Now, it's easy to say the stuff that you like, but as a business owner, as an executive, as a leader, as a human being, you have to be able to say the stuff from their perspective that they know you don't like, because it shows you to be fearless and accountable. I'm listening to Chris Christie on Bill Maher a couple weeks ago. You got to admire any Republican's got the backbone to go on Bill Maher, right? But a number of them do on a regular basis. And you know Maher's getting ready to tattoo Christie over Bridgegate, right? And who believes that Chris Christie didn't know about Bridgegate before it happened, regardless of all the investigation that said he didn't? So Maher gets ready to start in on him about whether or not he's responsible for Bridgegate, and Christie says, "Hold it." He says, "While I'm not responsible, I am accountable." The investigation shows that I did not know about it in advance, but I am accountable for the people that work for me and everything that they do. And Maher, shut up. Because people want you to be accountable. They really don't care if you're responsible. They do care if you're accountable. Because being accountable is how we're going to move forward together. And when you can articulate the stuff about the situation that they believe to be true, it doesn't have to be true, they believe to be true. If you can articulate their perspective and not argue with them, just articulate it, not agree. That's the key to empathy. Tactical empathy is neither agreement nor disagreement, and that's why Bob Mnookin and I ended up having such a great collaboration, because Harvard believed that empathy is not agreement. It's not agreement. It's not sympathy. It's not compassion. If you can pull those elements out, it gives you the ability to be empathic within, to use it as a negotiation tool with anybody on the planet. Because as an FBI hostage negotiator, how am I going to agree with Jihadi John from ISIS? But I still had to establish a working relationship with that guy to save lives. Or the guy that I'll show you again in a minute. So this is an American that has stumbled into a bad situation overseas. I was the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator, and what that meant was that any American got in trouble anywhere in the world with criminals or terrorists, not governments, but criminals or terrorists, it was my job to come up with a negotiation strategy to get them out. Now you might ask yourself, how often does that happen? Well, the point of fact that a lot of Americans walking into situations they got no business being in around the world. And at any given point in time, there's anywhere from 1 to 4 Americans that are being held someplace by terrorists or kidnappers, criminals. This is an American that's been grabbed in the Philippines, and here's our friend with the bandana that's got him. Now, this is a straight out of the movies terrorist, murder and rape and sociopathic killer. Because one of the interesting aspects that come up on a regular basis is, does empathy work with sociopaths? Well, this is a sociopath. How often do you run into a sociopath? Some of the latest data tells us it's 1 in 35. There are at least 35 people in this section right here. So with the sociopaths, please raise your hand. That's what he did earlier. Oh, those of you that are first-time sociopaths, stand up. This is a negotiator that I'm coaching. What I was an international negotiation coach. The negotiation techniques that my company teaches work because you're human. We all have a system in our head called the limbic system. Each and every thought that we have that goes through our head either starts at the limbic system, the emotions, or it goes through the emotions. That makes every single thought that you have has an emotional component, if and only if you're human. Some people in your family don't qualify, right? Your neighbor. So it doesn't matter what your gender is, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. That's why every hostage negotiation team from Baghdad to Bogota to Brooklyn uses the same negotiation skills, because we're dealing with human beings. I understand these skills. I can coach them regardless of what your business, what your industry, what your market, what your culture is. You just need to be coachable. And this is a guy who's coachable. At the time, he was the head of the Philippine Special Action Force, the SAF, which is the Philippine National Police's version of the Navy SEALs. When I met Benji, he'd been on 30 rescue missions. That year, it was August. He and his guys had been in 30 firefights because they never took handcuffs. And he always led his guys. And he was coachable. And he was a good guy, a genuine Philippine patriot. Retired a couple years ago, the #3 general in the Philippine National Police, and would love to kill this guy. You know, there was a line in a movie a couple years ago, "I'll cut your heart out with a dull spoon." Benji would have been happy to kill Mr. Bandana by cutting his heart out with a dull spoon, and probably would have been capable of doing it. Thank God he was on our side. But coachable. Now, our sociopath is holding on to this American, and they're asking for $10 million, $10 million, $10 million. But it's not ransom, it's for war damages. For 500 years of oppression, from the Spanish to the Japanese to the Americans. See, the atrocities committed by the Americans under Blackjack Pershing in the early 1900s. Do you guys know why the U.S. military carries .45 caliber automatic handguns? To kill this guy's grandfather. We used to have .38s, Blackjack Pershing, trying to put down a rebellion in the south of the Philippines, shooting these guys with .38s, and it's not knocking them down. These are tough, tough people. They have a 500-year history of warriors. They're hard to put down. This is who we're up against. That's why we carry .45s. They need a bigger bullet with more hitting power to knock them down and keep them down. Spanish to the Japanese to the Americans, 500 years of oppression. War damages, economic harm, violation of the fishing rights. Now, right now, each and every one of you is saying to yourself, that's why this has no applicability to me at all, because I was never in an argument with somebody where they were bringing up stuff from the past that was no longer relevant. We're going back and forth over the $10 million, literally for months at a time, and finally, I'd say to my guy, we're going to get a "that's right" out of the sociopath on the next conversation. The next conversation, you get him on the phone, you articulate everything that he said about why his stuff is justified, and lay it on thick. And if you don't feel like you're laying it on thick, you're not laying it on thick enough. You overstate his justifications. And you keep stating it until he says, what are the magic words? "That's right." So we get on the phone about 2 days later, and my guy says, you're not asking for ransom for the American, you're asking for war damages for 500 years of injustice and oppression. From the Spanish to the Japanese to the Americans, to the violations and the atrocities committed under Blackjack Pershing. And you're not Filipinos anyway, you're Moros. You're in a separate independent homeland of Moros who's being oppressed by the current puppet government that's being held up in Manila by the latest colonial invader. And this is 500 years of economic harm and violation of fishing rights. And he goes on and on and on, and he finally finishes, and there's a moment of silence, and a sociopath on the other end of the phone says, that's right. There's some more silence, and my guy says, talk again in a couple days. Okay. Hangs up the phone, and the $10 million was never mentioned again. It went away in that moment. Not one dime was ever mentioned in that kidnapping again. Kidnapping had a couple twists and turns for a couple of more months. We handled every one of those twists and turns with an application of emotional intelligence. And on Maundy Thursday, the Thursday before Easter, the American walks away. Just walked away. They'd become disorganized enough, they'd loosened up enough in their operation. The American is sitting out in a mango swamp. They're only checking on him every 3 days. He says, what am I still doing here? I'm leaving. Walks away. Local farmer sees him walking down a dirt road, says, you must be that American that's been in the media. Yeah, I am. Call the military, they come down, they pick him up, they fly him to Manila. They hold this big press conference. He's sitting at the presidential palace, the president of the Philippines on one side, the Secretary of Defense is on the other, Philippine Secretary of Defense, Angelo Reyes. Reyes says, in a daring rescue operation, we have rescued the American from the terrorists. It's a horrible firefight. They were mortally wounded. We don't have any terrorist bodies to show you because they crawled off into the bush and died, but it was a daring operation. They gave him a ride. That was a daring operation. He's sitting there, he didn't say a word, he's just looking back and forth. We get him out of there. I'm back in the Philippines 3 weeks later on another case. I catch up with my guy, he says, you are not gonna believe who called me on the phone. I don't know, who called you on the phone? Terrorist. Terrorist still had his undercover phone number, still knew him by his undercover name. Called him on the phone and said, have you been promoted yet? I don't know what you said to me on the phone. I was going to kill the American. You're really good at what you do. He hangs up. What's he saying in that moment? He called him to say it. What's he saying? He's not just saying good job. He's saying we're good. In spite of having lost everything, you and I are okay. And if we talk again, we're okay. That's how everybody that interacts with you in your business dealings, in your personal dealings, should react every time. We're good. And that will build your long-term success, and your businesses will prosper by taking the time to make sure the people feel heard. It's the smallest, most beneficial move that you can make in any given negotiation, and it'll preserve your relationships long-term. All right, so we got a couple of minutes left. I'll tell you real quickly. I said it was the tip of the iceberg. If and only if you want more. First of all, buy the book. Buy the book, buy the book, buy the book. And we got a newsletter that's free. If it's free, I'll take 3. Text the sign-up function. A lot of people get a long, long, long way on just the book and the newsletter. Now, we got a lot of free material on the site. The newsletter is a gateway to everything that we do. We got a lot of free stuff. If you do the text to sign-up function, make sure that FBI empathy is all one word. We also do some in-person training that we charge a lot of money for. And you need to be up to speed before you come to one of our trainings. We're actually going to be here in San Diego in August. I do not encourage people to come to the training who have not already read the book, because you're going to be in over your head if you haven't read the book. If you have, it's a high-speed training you're not going to get anywhere else. We also have a online video course. It's going to come online sometime in the next month or two. There'll be a demo coming out. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you're going to get a look at that. Only if you want more. Only if you want more. We've got a lot for you there. All right, I'd be happy to take a couple questions, and I'm going to finish up with a short video. So I know, yes, go ahead.
You use the word fair. Oh, well.
Fair.
Hey, Ryan. Jabez Lebret with CSU Academy. Thank you, by the way. Loved your book. You used the word fair as something to be very careful about, and it can set people on the defense, and it can put you in a bad position. I'm wondering if there's a fourth version of the word fair to build empathy for somebody else, as in trying to get the person you're negotiating with by saying, hey, this is happening to this person over here. Is that fair? To try to get them to empathize with the third party.
Can you get a third party to decree what's fair?
Correct.
Short answer is no. Now, fair is the F word. You'd be shocked at how often it comes up in a negotiation. I'm going to give you a fair offer. We gave you a fair offer. We just want what's fair. The sharks out there will either say, I'm going to give you a fair offer, or we gave you a fair offer, because it will put you on the defensive automatically. In a really subtle way, it implies that you're being unfair, and the sharks know that, and they're going to throw that out there to catch you off guard. Talk about it in the book. The last NFL players strike, the players are trying to get the NFL owners to open their books. The owners won't open their books. Why aren't they opening their books if it supports them, right? There's only one reason they didn't open those books. If the evidence supports you, you provide it. Donald Trump's tax return supported him, he'd provide them. So what do the NFL owners do instead? They hold a press conference and they say, we've given the players a fair offer. And it has its intended impact. It causes them to doubt themselves and their position. It splinters their cohesiveness, and very shortly thereafter, the owners settle the strike without opening their books. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm telling you it works. So fair is the F word. Now, why can't you get a third party to decree what's fair? Because of Danny Kahneman's prospect theory that he won the Nobel Prize for, none of us are fair in any way, shape, or form when it's our stuff that's coming up, because the prospect theory says a loss thinks twice as much as an equivalent gain, which is also why you should never split the difference. You and I are negotiating, and someone says, okay, it's fair for you to give up to him $5. Now, I'm probably going to be suckered by that, but if a loss thinks twice as much as a gain, and I give up $5, what do I feel I've lost? 10. And I'm not going to be okay with this negotiation until I hit you back for 10. Now, if I hit you for 10, what are you going to feel like you lost? You see the downward spiral there, right? There is no way to fairly split the difference. Take the extra time to find out what the better deal is. The extra time is going to be worth it. Take the extra time to at least hear them out and get a that's right out of them. You'll be shocked at the difference that'll make, and making fairness go away. People want to be treated fairly. They want to be heard. You'd be shocked at how many people will make the deal with you on your terms once you've heard them out. It's worth it. Believe me, the return on investment is insane. All right, I'm going to show you a quick video, and then we're going to be done. You might imagine a certain amount of preparation is required to get yourself to this point. So this is a video on the importance of preparation and negotiation.
A proof of life video, that's what they're called. The ultimate good news, bad news story, if you're ever unfortunate enough to see one. Today's high-stakes rescue mission in Colombia ended a drama that has been dragging on for years. Chris Voss is the former FBI lead international kidnapping negotiator, and he worked on the...
All right, it's a little hard to see because of the lighting in the room here, but in terms of preparation, one of my preparation issues in this appearance on CNN. My hair is sticking out. Hair on the side of my head is sticking out. Now, this is the first time I ever got to be on CNN at all, let alone on Anderson Cooper. I ain't been out of the government that long, and I'm excited to go in. There are going to be more people watching this than are in my hometown in Iowa. And I get questions about what it's like to be on TV. Like I heard, do they have green rooms? Do they have a green room, and is it green? Because if you're from Iowa and you got a green room in your house, that room's going to be green. Somebody says that's a green room, you walk in, it's green. So I want to know, is it green? They have a green room, it's not green. All right, what are you going to do? But at least now I know. You know where you go after the green room? Makeup. I remember the first time I was sitting in that chair and that really pretty makeup lady's putting makeup on my face, and I'm thinking, my father is rolling over in his grave right now. He never thought his son would wear makeup. So after you get out of makeup, they take you to the studio. It's actually, you're not in the studio with Anderson Cooper. The room is a large, dark closet. They got a light that shines right in your eyes. You look at the light. They say, look at the light, talk there. It's talking to Anderson. And down to the left side is a monitor, TV screen. They say, when we go live, the monitor's going to come on. It's going to show the live programming. Do you want that off or on? And I said, leave it on. I never saw me on CNN before. I want to watch me on CNN. Leave that baby on. So we've just gone live. The monitors come on. I'm looking down to my left, and I can see that my hair is sticking outside of my head. And I am perplexed. And the worst part is the monitor's a mirror image. I don't know which side of my head the hair is sticking out. How can I address it if I don't know which side it is? But I'm a negotiator. I work under pressure. I generate options. So the first thing I got to do is I got to try to figure out where the bad hair is.
This case from the beginning until his retirement just last year. He joins me now. Chris, this has got to be kind of...
I don't know why I thought moving my head around was going to help. Maybe it might wave in the wind or something. I could feel it and I would isolate it. You can see from the look on my face, I'm like, nah, that doesn't help. I got to deal with this because they're, like people who know my mom are going to see this and they're going to call her and they're going to say, your son can't comb his hair. What's the matter with him? I'm going to be accountable for this. So I got to deal with this, and what can I do? I can't go with two hands because I look like one of the Three Stooges. What happens if I hit it but it doesn't stay down? I can't probably lick my hand and then do that. So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to decide, I'm feeling pressure mount.
A remarkable day for you to be so...
Anderson Cooper, his hair is perfect. That's not fair. Why do they got to go split screen? I know his producer said, hey, let's go split screen. Let's make sure Anderson's hair wouldn't move in a hurricane. Let's make sure everybody sees that Voss looks like a mess. So I'm feeling the pressure. I got to make my move. It's like that kid's jump rope game with two jump ropes, double dutch, and you're trying to decide when you're going to get in. You got to go. You got to get in.
Closely involved in this, and to finally... see it come to fruition.
Damn it. What's the point? The point is you will make mistakes. I finished the interview. It was a good interview. They asked me back on. They didn't ban me for bad hair. You'll make mistakes in your negotiations. The approach of hearing the other side out will actually end up shortcutting the process, number one. Number two, it'll preserve your long-term relationships. You will make mistakes. Put yourself in a position when every negotiation, the other side feels sufficiently heard that however comes out, when they're done, they say to you, we're good. I'd deal with you again. Thanks for coming in and spending time with me this morning.